Thank you all for coming today to this first session that we're having, organized thanks to the EuroGeosurvey's Secretariat, and it was thought from the Geoheritage Expert Group to have several sessions related with geoheritage in different aspects. The session for today, the first one of the Geoheritage Expert Group, is called Geoheritage for Local Socioeconomic Development. And we're going to have three keynote speakers. The first one will be Dr. Roland Eichhorn from the Bavarian Geological Survey, who will be talking about a bottom-up approach to enhance visibility and awareness of Bavaria's geoheritage. Then we will also have Clare Glanville from the Geological Survey of Ireland, who will be speaking about county-level audits in Ireland to promoting and protecting local geoheritage. And finally, we will have Nicolas Charles from the French Geological Survey, the BRGM, who will be speaking about highlighting geoheritage in the world's leading tourist country. Nicolas couldn't make it at the last moment for today, so he has sent a video with his presentation. I suppose he will not be able to respond to your questions, but we will try to make up for anybody who has any questions. And if we can just directly begin our session today, then we will hear Roland. If you want to share your screen, and the talk from Roland, as I was mentioning, is called A Bottom-Up Approach to Enhance Visibility and Awareness of Bavaria's Geoheritage in Germany. He is from the Bavarian Geological Survey, and please, if you're interested, we will open mics later for after all the three presentations. I think it's better to first have all the three presentations and then respond. If you want to ask anything directly in written to the speaker, you can put it in the chat, mention who the question is directed to, and then that person, the speaker, will try to respond your questions. And let's start. If you want to share your screen.
Yes, Enrique, thank you. And good morning to everybody. My name is Roland. Enrique has made already the introduction from Germany, Bavaria. I'm the head of the Geological Survey, and I have to especially greet one of the audience, Uli Lagali. He is not only my mentor, he is now a retired geologist, but as I might say, he's the godfather of geoheritage in Germany. So I'm not sure whether I should make the presentation and not Uli. So Uli, I beg your pardon if I'm totally wrong with our presentation. So I start sharing my screen. So Enrique, can you give me a sign whether you can see the screen? All right, so here we go. It's a complicated title, A Bottom-Up Approach to Enhance Visibility and Awareness of Bavaria's Geoheritage. To put it in a nutshell, it is something like an advertising campaign where we try to promote the geoheritage inventory. And how we did this, I'm going to talk about. First of all, what is meant by bottom-up? We have to start in the line on the bottom. First, we had to find all the geosites in Bavaria. It had been 4,000, and from there, from that bottom of this was our foundation, so to speak. We had 4,000 geosites, and now we had to invent a procedure. How can we promote these geosites? And I will give you a way from point 1 to point 4, how we can make a campaign to promote the need for protection of geosites. And we will start by one. First, if you want to make a successful ad campaign, you have to know what is on the bottom. That means how many geosites or what is your geoheritage inventory. We did this for at least 10 years. We needed manpower, 3 persons. And you can see here the outline of Bavaria and in the background the geological map of Bavaria. And it is very obvious that all the red dots are geosites, but they are not scattered, I would say, partially. There are regions, I'll show you here. These area in yellow, this is essentially only sand and gravel. So in my opinion, very boring. You can't find so much interesting geosites. Down in the south, they are beginning the Bavarian Alps, and of course, the Alps with the mountains show a very beautiful landscape. We do have here in the brown-red area on the east, these are lower mountains, the Bavarian forest or Franconian forest, which is also very beautiful. And we do have here in the middle blue, these are Jurassic karst-like area. There are a lot of geosites, but these are only some landforms and caves. So it is, let's say, only a very special kind of geosite. Okay, well, we do have the bottom. Now, what we have to do? We have to evaluate all the geosites in order to get the most precious ones, the most valuable ones into knowledge. And this is one parameter we used for the evaluation, the condition of the geosite. And as you may well see, this is a quarry where a lot of Christmas trees are growing now. Hopefully in 3 weeks, all the Christmas trees are away. We will see. But now, if you want to evaluate this special quarry, I would say 2 points would be okay, because it is not well preserved, not very accessible now in that condition, but it is also not heavily damaged. Because if you cut the trees and you clean the area, then you will have a very good quarry, a very good wall. So for this parameter, I would give 2 points. Only to give you an idea how we did every and each geosite evaluate. A second parameter, only to give you an idea, the significance for the general public. We invented 3 different categories, therefore it is a type locality, or it is in a scientific publication, very prominent in a scientific publication. We will give that geosite 3 points. Only 1 point if it is only for the local history or for tourism relevant. Okay, if we do that, now it's starting to get complicated. We invented 8 parameters. The general geoscientific significance, only to give you here an idea, that means how many sectors of geoscientific work is covered by this geosite. Let's say it is important for crystallography, for geophysics, or for paleontology, the more the better. Then regional geological significance for the general public, condition of the geosite, frequency and occurrence. You get the idea. Then you build a sum and you have the overall geoscientific value. And after evaluation of the geoscientific value, we took it a step further because we want to know whether there are threats to the geosite or comparable geosites under protection. And then you get the overall sum. With this method, I think we had a very good estimation, not really objective, it's still subjective, but far better than only describing with words the significance of a geosite. because if you want to go into legal business, it's always better to have some clear data numbers. This is our experience over 30 years of geosites protection. Numbers is far better than only words. Well, now, if you had evaluated all the 4,000 geosites, this was quite easy to prioritize them because we had some kind of a Gaussian distribution of all the 4,000 geosites. Statistically, is this what you might expect, what you get. And we took the 2 sigma, 3 sigma percentage of the best ones. And these were about 2.5%. So this is only an estimation. Because we thought about what kind of how many geosites we want to put into our advertisement campaign. Now, well, the number 100 is a funny number. You can take 111 or 99 or whatever you want. We thought about 100 is a clear and distinct number. This is only for orientation. As you see, you can have it from a paper by Lagalli and Lode. We in Bavaria we are very lucky because we have a huge portfolio of geological periods. Practically all the periods of the geological past can be covered by geosites in Bavaria. Of course, the older they become seldom, but this is only for you as orientation. The same thing is true with this pie chart. Most of the geosites are landforms and exposures, which is quite what you might expect, let's say. All right, if you had done that. Now it starts the advertising campaign. We invented a name for our project, 100 Masterpieces, Bavaria's most beautiful geosites. We made a logo, which you can see on the bottom left. And you can also see, once again, the outline of Bavaria and where the 100 geosites, which we want to add in our campaign, are located. And you can see we also focused on the effect that we want to have them scattered all over the country, so that we, even as you remember, the yellow area with only sand and gravel does not have so many geosites. We at least wanted a few of them located within that area. So what do you have to do if you want to successfully make an advertisement campaign? First of all, you have to know, you have to show the direction to any tourist or hiker. You have to show the direction. So we invented a road sign, which is quite easy. I like the color blue, like Uli Lagalli as well. So we made a road sign in blue and we put it on traffic pole where all the other signs were as well. But bureaucracy is overwhelming. So my first advice, first ask the road authority for permission. Because we learned it the hard way, you can't simply put a sign on an official road pole and you can't use a color you want. In Germany, it is obligatory that the color of a road sign is in brown if it is touristic. So, first advice, ask permission. Second, not only the road sign is important. If you have a tourist, you should place some advertisement, let's say leaflets, in the tourist office. So we made one, which, by the way, is important to have it A5. Then you will be loved by tourist agencies because you see most of the leaflets will go into some kind of these, how to say, this leaflet giveaway I don't know the English word for the thing on the right side. But I think you know what I mean. And then it was for us a very good idea to make a very funny teaser. This is very difficult to translate in a foreign language. So let's say the flysch bedding. We had a geosite with flysch, and they have a very good layering of bedding. So we don't tell it as, we don't say this is flysch bedding, but it's a bedtime tweet, or the basalt columns, it's called magna cum laude or something like that. So this is funny, and few of the tourists think they want to know what the funny teaser is all about. And at least we were quite successful. 250,000 of these flyers have been distributed over the time. So if you had all that, it is the third very obvious part is that you have to make an on-site explanation panel a la KISS, not the rock band I'm very fond of, but the method. The method is keep it short and simple, the KISS method. And now this is probably the most unusual and the most successful part of the whole campaign, because the three things, leave a flyer, a road sign, and a panel, okay, everyone knows that he has to do that. But now this is essential. We had the idea that we want to integrate the local residents as sponsors or patrons of the geosite. Here you can see a picture. This is a glacial polish, and it is cleaned by a local voluntary fire brigade. And if you do that, now suddenly the neighborhood is really interested in the geoheritage in the neighborhood. They are very proud of the geosite. And then it's far better as compared to doing it for yourself as office, as an administration agency. This was very essential. And if you do that, then you should also organize a celebration. Organize a ceremonial, let's say, seal of excellence award. That means if the sponsor or the village which wants to protect the geosite, which wants to keep the geosite clean, give it a seal of excellence. And the seal of excellence can be promoted by, let's say, a minister or a very famous person. And if you do that, media coverage is guaranteed. We had about 1,000 to 2,000 media coverages in form from TV or radio or articles in newsletters. This was a very, very huge success. And because it was so huge, we can say that in Bavaria, the geosites are now really renowned and well known. So, no further pictures. Let's come to the end. Overall benefit of the project. First, as I already told you, it is a better understanding of the necessity for the geological heritage, and we experienced a huge cooperation between our geological survey and the sponsors and patrons in the neighborhood of the geosite. It goes so far that other communities even were envious and wanted to be included into the program. This networking is now far better as it was before we started the project. The voluntary sponsorship is, of course, the most successful aspect of the whole ad campaign, because now they care for their geosite. And it was a huge attraction for politicians, because as you know, if you have media coverage, a politician is very near. And these attraction to high-level politicians in turn triggered an unusual high grade of positive media coverage. It was a self-fulfilling prophecy. And this was, let's say, a bycatch. the Earth Cacher, they discovered our 100 geosites, and they are all now included in a worldwide geocaching activities without any contribution from our project management. But where there is light, there is also the dark side of the moon. The KISS method, of course, has to be scientifically inaccurate because we focused on tourists, hikers and laypersons and not professionals. That means with our information alone, it was not possible for students, geology students, to use that spot for their excursion. They had to have more and further information. So we had to accept that it is really only for laypersons. It had been an uneven distribution of objects. I already told you that. We can't invent a new geology. Yes, there had been a few frustrated candidates. Yes, we had to say that, but it was absolutely necessary to fix the number of top geosites. If you open it up and say, no, now 10 years later, let's say we found now 130 top sites, you make you a little bit unbelievable. Conflict of interest, yes, in some cases we would had really we wanted to integrate a few of the top geosites, but it was not possible due to safety reasons, because it was a very dangerous area, or it was privately owned and access denied, or there had been no roads or trails to go there. Yes, of course. And yeah, the scourge of today, vandalism, gravity, is rare but real. To give you a number, from our 100 geosites, at least 2 per year have to be repaired. So you need not too much money, but you need money to make it clean again or to repair it again. So last slide to sum it up, general conclusion. 10 years after the end of the project, the 100 masterpieces are still well taken care by their respective patrons. Many communities discover the touristic potential of their geological environment. And yes, the second half of that statement, since COVID pandemic even more, yeah, that's true. Really, we had a tenfold increase of telephone calls or emails, because during the pandemic, a lot of people can't go to their worldwide travel in summer holidays, but they bought an e-bike or mountain bike and they tried to discover their neighborhood. And then they stumbled over our geosites and started to get interested in geosites. So this was one of the few positive aspects of the pandemic, if any. Yes, of course, the project triggered a geo appreciation. It is very important, but everyone who is in the business knows that only what you esteem you will protect. And this is the most, to put it in a nutshell, this is the most important conclusion. We think that that you are more successful if you can protect by esteem and not by law. I think this is the Bavarian way. To our experience, it is a very successful way. So if you want to know more, there's an article online, Lagali and Load. You can Google it in Geoheritage. Thank you very much for your attention. I close the screen and been open for discussion. Thank you.
That's excellent. Thank you very much, Roland. Very good. I'm sure that there will be a lot of interest, because it is always good to learn from the good and from the bad experiences. I mean, not that your experience is bad, but from...
Yo.
No, well, you know what I mean. That it is better not to make mistakes, and it is the best thing is when somebody recommends don't do this, because then you don't know what consequences can be and all these things. This is excellent, and to learn from others. And now we will have the talk from Clare Glanville about county level audits in Ireland, promoting and protecting the local geoheritage. If you can share your screen.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, Enrique. Just bear with me while I share my screen.
And introduce yourself also, like Roland did.
Yes, can you see my screen?
Yes?
Yes, okay, that's great. My name is Clare Glanville, and I'm the Senior Geologist with the Geoheritage Programme at the Geological Survey Ireland. And likewise, I'm very glad to be here for the first of our EuroGeosurvey's Geoheritage Expert Group webinar series, talking about the contribution of geological surveys to geoconservation. And this is just the first of a number of them. So I'd like to welcome you all as well in that respect. So I'd just like to talk to you a little bit about county level audits in Ireland and how they're used in promoting and protecting local geoheritage. So first of all, a little bit of background about our geoheritage programme and what we call county geological audits. The programme was first established in 2004 with the aim to identify sites that should be designated as natural heritage areas, or NHAs, under the EU Habitats Directive. Due to the volume of work required and resources available, it soon became obvious that this needed to be a partnership project. So although the Geological Heritage Programme exists within the GSI, we opened the audit process up to a sort of a partnership, which included the local authorities and ourselves, with funding from the Geoheritage Council, and the National Parks and Wildlife Service also have a role in this partnership. The aim of the project was to establish a national data set that could be used to support the designation of geological heritage areas. And so an important part of that was first to identify the sites that best represent the geological heritage of Ireland. We took a phased approach, as I said, starting in 2004, with the identification of sites based on 16 geological themes. This was completed fairly quickly. It was largely a desk-based study and focused on the knowledge of the theme experts as well as previously published research. And it led to what we call here an indicative list of sites, of geoheritage sites. The next step was to look at these sites and to audit them. So all of this process is a little bit before where Roland is in Bavaria, where he was discussing the advertising and the evaluation of sites. But our next step was to move to auditing these sites. So sites from the indicative, well, it was done in partnership, so it was very important to have the local authorities involved. So we did it on a county basis, county by county, working with each individual local authority as time went on. And so for each county, the indicative list was examined and the sites on it were audited. Additional sites were also inspected on a county level based on local knowledge. So the sites were inspected and they were assessed for suitability as geological heritage site, or a county geological site, we call them on this process. A non-technical report is produced for each site and recommendations on management, suitability for access, promotion and that sort of thing. The third phase is only just beginning and is largely future work, and probably bears more resemblance to what Roland has just spoken about before me. Includes a synthesis of what's now almost a national data set of geological heritage sites. And when you combine all the counties together, we've almost completed a national set. It'll hopefully lead to the submission of sites for NHA designation, and we'll be working with our partners, National Parks and Wildlife Service, in that respect. And of course, because this process has been ongoing since 2004, there may be some individual sites that need to be revisited and re-examined. So this just to show you where we are to date. So we've about 94–95% of the counties have been audited. We can see all the dark green areas are counties which have now been audited, and there are lists of county geological heritage sites for each of those. The pale green area in the southwest is County Cork. That's a 3-year audit, and we're just starting the 3rd and final year, so hopefully that will be audited by the end of 2023. And Kerry is the remaining county in the southwest, which we hope to start next year and will be completed in 2024. You'll also see on this map, I have included our UNESCO Global Geoparks, and I just wanted to mention that we have 3 UNESCO Global Geoparks in Ireland and 1 aspiring geopark, and this reflects the great diversity of geological heritage and geology we have in the country. But the reason I included these here is because the geoparks build on the audited site data, and they use it to develop the geoheritage narrative within their parks. So it's an important part of their projects as well. So when each county is audited in partnership with the local authority and the Heritage Council, a County Geological Heritage Report is written. This is a short report written in non-technical language, discusses the geology of the county, and in summary talks about the context in which the geological sites are selected, a bit of background about the planning context, promotion of them and management of them. An important part of each county report are the individual site reports. And so we keep these short, relatively short, to 2 to 3 pages. They include some information and also a photographic record, and the boundary of the sites is mapped, and these mapped boundaries are also available digitally for download as shapefiles, or can be viewed on our website at Geological Survey Ireland. The main features of each individual site report, they have a short section on the geological system, or the age, the rock type, what the main geology or interest is, if it's a landform or if it's an exposure. There's a section on the site importance, whether it's of local importance, national or international, or whether we think it should be recommended for one of these natural heritage areas under the EU Habitats Directive in due course. It also has a section where we talk about management issues and promotion, what the access to the site is like, whether it's under threat from natural processes or human influence. And as I said before, there's a photographic record, and the site boundaries are clearly mapped. So once the sites are audited, it's important, as Roland was saying, to get the information out there and make it usable and valuable. So the sites are recognised and through the local authorities and their planning departments, and that's why this partnership that we have working with the local authorities and the Heritage Council is so important, because it provides an ownership of those sites within each county, And the list of sites for each county is included in what we call a county development plan. So this is a plan for the local authority as to their priorities and their objectives on a 5-year basis, and it's renewed every 4 to 5 years. So they include a list in the counties that have been audited. They include a list of county geological sites with a map, and each site has an objective associated with it in terms of its promotion and its protection. The county geological sites are also importantly recognised in our broader national heritage plans and cultural plans. And of course, outreach is an important part of the process, as you saw from the previous presentation by Roland. As you said, many of these sites have high amenity and educational value. And so the outreach on the completion of a county geological audit includes things like museum displays, which may travel between different libraries, local libraries within the county, or larger museums, the production of popular geological or science books to make the information in the audit more accessible to the general public, and some county councils develop educational content for their primary and secondary schools, and other promotional activities such as guided walks and tours. In the context of protection and promotion, I'd just like to give you an example of how this works within the planning process in Ireland. This slide has quite a lot of detail, so what I'll do is move on to the next slide, and then I will just talk about some of this. So this is a coastal site. It's a county geological site. It's a cliff section, and it's composed of quaternary aged glacial sediments. In fact, there are 5 different facies exposed in this cliff, representing 5 different depositional environments at the end of the last ice age. And the sedimentology provides information on processes of regional deglaciation. So this is an important site nationally as well as locally. This section shows excellent examples of laminated clays, till deposits, and drop stones. You can see some of these in the photos here. Because this site is a county geological site and it's listed, as I said, in the county development plans, when a housing development planning application was lodged with the local authority, the planning department were aware of this site and they made us aware of the planning application. The development had proposed to cover the cliff that you see here with rock armour to prevent further erosion from natural processes and weathering. This, unfortunately, would have completely obliterated the exposure and also access to it for future study and research. So through this planning process, and because the sites had been audited and listed, we were able to engage with the developer. We went and visited the site by ourselves first to assess its current condition, and then with the developer and their engineers to look at the site and see what we could do in terms of protecting the geological heritage here. And while there was a large section, probably 200, 300 meters long, that they wanted to protect with rock armour, we were able to select a smaller section of the cliff of about 20 meters long, which showed the widest range of geological features and heritage that we wanted to preserve. And so we worked with them to examine, and their engineers, of course, to examine different coastal protection techniques that may allow this site to remain open to the public, to have access, and to preserve it. And so what we came up with, or I should say what their engineers came up with, was a proposal. As you can see here, this section is the rock armour up against the cliff face, which they had originally proposed for the whole site. This here is the section of 20 metres that we agreed that we would protect. And what they did was they proposed a stepped back rock armour. You can see it in this lower diagram. Sorry, the images are not great. This berm, a way of describing it, of rock armour, is stepped back by about 1.5 metres from the cliff edge. It's designed to be porous so that the tide can still move through it, but the energy of the waves is taken out. And so for this section, the cliff exposure is protected, and also the development is protected. This was a little bit of a tricky site because it was, as it was a cliff site, it was already at the risk of natural erosion from natural processes. So we had to decide what was the value in protecting this site if, with given sea level rise changes and estimates and stronger storms, whether this site was under threat from natural processes, whether there was value in protecting it, and how much of it should be protected. So all of these things were taken into consideration. Also the chance that without the natural erosion, that the cliff face may slump and become obscured anyway. So these are all factors that had to be taken into account. But I think the solution that has been proposed ticks as many of those boxes as possible. And I think that is about the end of my presentation. And so if you have any questions, I'm happy to chat to you about them at the end. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Claire. Very interesting also to see the real examples, as I was mentioning, with the good things and the bad things, and we can talk about all those later. And so now we will have the video that was recorded by Nicolas. His presentation is going to be highlighting geoheritage in the world's leading tourist country, that is France, by Nicolas Charles. He's from the French Geological Survey, the BRGM. Let's see if it works. If you want to begin the presentation, okay.
Bonjour. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very glad to take part to this first webinar organized by the Geological Survey's Geoheritage Expert Group. This presentation will present the relatively unknown link between geoheritage and tourism, an important economic activity in Europe. In earth sciences, the part of tourism which can be linked to geology is called geotourism. The goal of this presentation is to show how a geological survey can highlight geoheritage and its conservation through touristic activities, taking the example of France, the first touristic country in the world. As I just said, France is the first touristic destination in the world with about 90 million tourists in 2019. This has major economic impact for this country since tourism participates to 8% of GDP, generates 2 million jobs, and the tourist consumption represents 180 billion euros in 2019. But why this country is the first destination for tourists in the world? France is relatively a small country, but with a high diversity of natural heritage, with beaches, mountains, plains, lakes, islands, and the second largest maritime domain in the world if we consider also the overseas territories. France has also a strategic geographic position at the crossroads of the European continent, with international airports with big hubs, highways between North and South of Europe, or high-speed highways. Moreover, the French cultural heritage is internationally renowned with a lot of monuments, museums, a famous gastronomy, the tradition of terroirs and vineyards, the possibility to visit international cities and archaeological sites. Finally, tourists also appreciate the temperate climate, especially in summer. On this slide, you can see a list compiled by a travel agency in France during a few days in summer 2021. This list represented the most mentioned natural sites on the application Instagram as Mont Blanc Peak, the top of the European Union, the Verdun Canyon, or even the Pilat Dune, the highest dune in Europe. We can note that all these touristic sites are natural heritage with a geoheritage component. It's also noteworthy that most of these sites are taking part to the National Geoheritage Inventory of France. As a result, on this slide, you can see a list compiled by a travel agency in France during a few days in summer 2021. This list represented the most mentioned natural sites on the application Instagram as Mont Blanc Peak, the top of the European Union, the Verdun Canyon, or even the Pilat Dune, the highest dune in Europe. We can note that all these touristic sites are natural heritage with a geoheritage component. It's also noteworthy that most of these sites are taking part to the National Geoheritage Inventory in France. As a result, we can say that these sites encompass a part of geotourism. But what is geotourism? Geotourism is quite a recent concept, with the first published definition given by Hoos in 1995 as a provision of interpretive and service facilities to enable tourists to acquire knowledge and understanding of the geology and geomorphology of a site beyond the level of mere aesthetic appreciation. More recently, in 2010, Newsom and Dowling gave a more precise definition, defining geotourism as a form of natural area tourism that specifically focuses on geology and scale. It promotes tourism in geosites and the conservation of geodiversity and understanding of earth sciences through appreciation and learning. This is achieved through independent visits to geological features, use of geotrail and viewpoints, guided tours, geo-activities, and patronage of geosite visitor centers. We have seen before that many natural sites are linked to geology. Tourism in nature, as you can see on this figure to the left, aims to discover environments and landscape with a sustainable development approach, especially through ecotourism and the discovery of biodiversity, as for example in national parks and natural reserves. However, the abiotic equivalent of biodiversity and biological heritage is often omitted. I'm referring to geodiversity and geotourism. We can visit in situ or ex situ sites, as you can see on this figure. Geotourism is also fully participating to sustainable tourism as defined on this figure by Beta, where geology can make the link between different types of tourism, cultural, ecological, or scientific. Okay, well, on this map of mainland France are represented the main natural protected areas, with national parks in purple, regional natural parks in green, and UNESCO Global Geopark in blue. Moreover, red polygons and points on this map represent the geosites taking part to the National Geoheritage Inventory. Many geosites are included in these main protected areas, and some of these areas have even been created, especially to conserve valuable geosites, as for example the third geological reserve of Socalabrate.
Please, everybody mute your microphones, please.
However, geology is often not mentioned in these protected natural areas, even though geoheritage is an integral part of natural heritage, and its conservation is as essential as that of biological heritage. However, geology helps to explain and understand the Earth's history, the history of landscape and their evolution, and also the evolution of the environment of a special territory or a region. To the question, is the geology known by tourists? The answer is not really, because geology is often unknown to the general public while it affects many areas of daily life. It is a science that often appears abstruse, and spatial and temporal concepts appears as difficult to grasp, especially in terms of million years or billion years. But at the same time, people never stop trying to understand the geographical, natural, cultural, or socio-economic environment in which they live. This desire tends to respond to simple curiosity of fears often linked, for example, to natural hazards, industrial disposal sites, risk of water pollution or new energy resources, etc. Well, now, how to highlight geoheritage to tourists and finally to geotourists? The first point is to identify the audience, as you can see on the figure to the left, between the low scale and the high scale audience in order to adapt the type of communication support with panels, leaflets, guides, museum displays, general public books, etc. You have also, as you can see on the figure to the right, to choose the good equilibrium between text, illustration, and specimen of rocks, mineral, or fossils. As geology is often overlooked, while it affects many areas of daily life, as I already said, the best way to analyze this science is to integrate the principles of sustainable development in relation to social issues, like mineral resources use, understanding and prevention of natural hazards, air, soil, and subsoil pollution, climate change, and the role of human beings in the evolution of their environment. Geological heritage appears as a very good tool to inform and raise awareness of natural heritage, especially with outstanding examples like amazing landscape and that show interconnection also with biodiversity and human activities. But what can be the role of a geological survey to highlight geoheritage? Let me present you the example of BRGM, the French Geological Survey. One of the best valuable support and tool for a geological survey is to have a publishing house or a similar department. For BRGM Publishing House, it represented the first French-speaking publisher in earth sciences. This department can provide multiple promotional products like maps, guides, panels for exhibition or site development, conferences or field trip. Another main role of a geological survey is geoscientific training and awareness raising. It could be carried out at national or international levels and adapted to the need of the audience. A survey can work with state authorities, especially those managing the natural protected areas, but also with public organisms like university, but also with geoparks or national and regional parks, and even also with private sector and other companies. A first example here is this thematic map with an unknown geotouristic approach for the Sancerre vineyards located in the center of France, close to the Loire Valley. We mentioned the link in this document between geology and terroir with didactic figures showing the different profiles of soil, as you can see at the top to the right. The location of vineyard plots and the history of vineyard are also mentioned on the map. We get a great interest from wine growers union or from main wine estates of this area. It's quite an uncommon way to present a scientific document at the beginning, which is a geological map. Here now you can see another example of thematic map showing the sites where extracted some mineral resources and their daily life uses and application, as exemplified at the bottom right of these figures. Photographs, symbol and text are balanced according to the targeted public. Here, more raw material industries and university. You can also have thematic map dealing with thermal springs, mines, and also industrial minerals, or ornamental rocks and the link with built heritage. You can also have a map with historical earthquakes, or even a hydrogeological map showing the waterground resources. Another medium for promoting geoheritage is geological guides. You have some examples here of titles in touristic areas of France. An important point also to mention is the co-editions with local actors, and to find also co-funding to show the interaction with the different stakeholders involved in a territory. For this collection of field guides entitled Geological, you have different parts. The main one presents different geosites promoting geoheritage and its conservation for a territory. These geosites covers all geosciences, not only pure geology. You can have hydrogeology, geohazards, or even mineral resources. And these guides are profusely illustrated and balanced between photographs, diagrams, maps, etc. and text. A link between geosites and local history is also fostered. Another main chapter for this book shows the links between stones and humans through socio-economic and socio-cultural dimensions. That means, for example, built heritage and mineral resources, what kind of rocks used in the monuments, water consumption and waterground resources, industrial activities or heritage with active or former mines and quarries, or even art and geology, especially with landscape. To clearly describe natural heritage and highlight geoheritage, this kind of book also speaks about biodiversity, and we can thus consider natural heritage as one entity showing ecosystem, fauna and flora, and the strong links between geodiversity and biodiversity. Another type of book can be the geotrails guides, in order to approach the notion of landscapes through the geoheritage of a territory on another area. You can see the example here for the Loire Valley, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. In this region, geology is not directly visible due to the lowland morphology of this area, and link to geology must be addressed through other aspects. In this case, again, with the stone used in the monuments, especially in the Renaissance castle along the Loire Valley. For example, the stone is a Cretaceous-Silicious limestone called tuffeau, and you can make the link with the history of people who extracted this stone in underground quarries, which are now cellars or mushroom farms. You should avoid scientific jargon in such a book as much as possible. Not only talk about geology, but also include sites of cultural and biological interest, for example. Geotrails can also take place in cities and not only in the countryside. Here you have a collection of guides proposing tours in city, making the link between cultural heritage, mainly built heritage, and geoheritage. You can present why the site was historically established in this place and not in another one. Cities are often established for natural reasons, such as the presence of waters, the high topographical points that can be easily defended, the presence of mineral resources to build the city, and most of these reasons are linked to geosciences. You can also valorize the ex situ geoheritage with a visit of museum collection with minerals, fossils, and rocks. Books are also a high-quality medium to highlight geoheritage.
I have sent a message to the Secretariat of EGS to see if they can see what has happened, because please, everybody close your microphones. She was telling me that some people are opening them. Hopefully we will continue hearing the presentation. but we are not yet hearing. Well, I don't know if we can continue with the video, hopefully, because it is very difficult then to stop and start again.
Geodiversity of
Okay, now it continues.
promoted through exhibition,
Okay.
highly illustrated panels, as you can see on this slide. Geodiversity of a territory can be promoted through exhibition with highly illustrated panels, as you can see on this slide. You can see some example of panel dealing with Loire Valley geology or the link between geology of D-Day beaches in Normandy or during the First World War. Apart from panel illustrating an exhibition, panels can also be used in situ. Panels are adapted to a territory and or a thematic and allow to show the link between geoheritage and natural resources, or hydrogeology and waterground resources, the natural hazards, the monuments and architecture, or to explain the Earth's history through regional geological setting. Here you can see an example to explain quaternary volcanism in south of France close to the city of Montpellier. This panel shows how the Earth's crust is stretched and how was generated volcanism, which is still visible today thanks to geosites where we can observe lava flows or basaltic prisms or faulting. Geology is a naturalist science based on observation in the field. Bring public in the field during guided trips is a good way to promote geoheritage. Guided field trips is adapted to all audiences and can be co-organized with different actors of a territory as learned societies, associations, or protected areas, as for example the National Park of Calanque here in photograph, close to the city of Marseille. And also guided trips can be carried out in as well as outside the cities. Finally, talking about our science in front of an audience is a very good, interactive, important awareness-raising moment. Conferences or animations are always appreciated by a varied public and can cover different themes for a given territory or more widely, allowing people to discover their region through geoheritage, an angle of discovery often neglected. Socio-cultural and socio-economic approaches and their links with geology should be given a priority. For the anecdote, you can see on the photograph down center, President Hollande during, I remember it was during a book exhibition in Paris, and we explained to President Hollande that on his electoral lands in central of France, several geosites made it possible to observe the witnesses of an old meteorite impact some 200 million years ago. And you can see he is looking a specific rock, an impactite on the stage. Okay, so here are some main points to summarize what can be the role of a geological survey for highlighting geoheritage and promoting its use and conservation. A geological survey has to improve geological knowledge to better assess the geodiversity in order to inventory the elements with the highest value constituting the geoheritage. Promotion and dissemination of geoheritage and geoconservation concepts are also essential. Indeed, geoheritage is a resource for territories in the framework of sustainable development, especially for tourism, education, and scientific knowledge. As scientists, we need to adapt to our audience and not the other way around. The final point is to make links between all stakeholders for promoting and conserving geoheritage of a territory as a full part of natural heritage. Merci pour votre attention. Thanks for your attention.
Well, he's not present, Nicolas, but thank you very much. I will let him know, and also if you have questions, we can always transmit to him and he can respond in written, but maybe we can also answer if it is something general, not specifically about France or his presentation. So now, after the three talks, the three presentations that we have had, we will open for questions. I was already reading, there was some question posed to specifically to me in Spanish from a colleague who works in the national park, and this was he was asking to Roland if you can open. Let's see.
Yeah, Enrique, I'm hearing.
Okay, and Claire, if you can also open your video and the audio. So the question for Roland, he was mentioning, is this discussion that you have, and also I think Claire at some moment, and even Nicolas has been speaking about this challenge that we have between making things simple for the public outreach, but then this generates inaccuracy. And you were saying that this is sometimes it generates this that you were not very happy at some moments, maybe because you were feeling that you were not doing the appropriate thing. But because when scientists see these things, then they are not happy of what you are saying. So I would like, I mean, what he would like to mention at the same time this branch of public outreach, which is what's called the heritage interpretation. You know, these Freeman Tildens and this from the past century that has generated a lot of schools for interpreting nature and culture for the public in general, and about always talking about simplicity, always talking about capturing the attention of the general public in general, which is the important thing. No? So I would maybe Roland, because the question was posed to Roland, but maybe if you also want to say something later, Claire, think about it. So first, Roland, please. What do you think about it?
Yes, it's a permanent struggle. We geologists, we love our work, and we always invent very complicated names. And we think if we explain another geologist all about the geology, he will understand me. And the problem is, if the other one is not a geologist, trouble erupts. and therefore, it is absolutely necessary that you have a professional who is able to translate the scientific language in a popular science language. Enrique, we have been both in Sumaya, and maybe you remember I presented a talk about the Archaeopteryx, which is a very famous bird. Essentially, it's an old chicken. But if I say to a paleontologist that this is an old chicken, he's not amused. So yeah, this is a struggle we have to deal with on a daily basis, I would say.
Well, I suppose that I mean, this has been for generations, the ability to be able to explain things to people who have absolutely no knowledge, and the first thing is to grasp their attention. So usually you make certain, abuse of the way of explaining things to just making it so simple that it may seem stupid or just funny, but at least you have captured them, and now they are willing to listen. And when
Enrique, you are right. As a scientist, you have to train that you explain it, let's say, far too simple in your own opinion, but it is not too simple. And in Germany, at least, we don't have, if you study geology, you don't have a special course about talking simply, explain it simply. You are not used to that. But if you work in geotourism, you have to learn that, at least in the hard way. If you want to get acceptance in the neighborhood, there's a simple family. and you have to convince a family that they should work on protecting a geosite. So you can't speak about special words which no one understands. You have to use a simple language, and the people are not stupid. They understand what you want, but you have to use simpler words to understand it. So you have to do it, and you can get some critics which think this is now too simple. But in my experience, you can't be too simple. I would rather say it is a kind of arrogance if you think you have to use your special wording. No, you don't have to use it. Keep it simple, and you will be loved.
Thank you. Yes, Roland. Claire, do you want to say something?
Yeah, well, I just agree completely with Roland. It's very important for us to speak in a language that people can understand. If we talk only in scientific language that other geologists understand, we're only ever speaking to ourselves. We're talking to the converted. And what's the point? Because these people already understand, they already have an enthusiasm, they already have an interest. So if we want to make more people aware and share our enthusiasm with more people and bring more people's awareness on board, then we have to speak to them in a language that they understand. And as Roland said, they're not stupid, they just don't have the vocabulary perhaps that we have. So I think it's really important. And for the critics, you can always have different levels of information. So you need to speak to your audience. So you can have a level of information to speak to the general public. You can have the same information at a more scientific level if you're talking to a different audience.
Yeah, that's exactly what Nicolas was mentioning in one of his last slides in the conclusions, that we have to adapt to the audience. Yeah, if you have a scientist, talk in the scientific language, but if you have lay people that are just basic school, then there's many ways of making it funny, making it simple, making it attractive. As we were all mentioning, that once you have their attention and their willingness to continue listening, then that's when you are hoping that they will engage with the site, that they will want to learn more, and that's the opportunity.
And I think it's most important for geoheritage because it's everybody's geoheritage. It's heritage for everybody. It's not just heritage for geologists. So, you know, I think it's most important in geoheritage to speak in those simpler terms. You know, perhaps if you're in other disciplines of geology, you might have a different audience and you can speak more technically, but in geoheritage, I think it's really important.
I don't know if there's anybody that wants to raise their hands to make a question, and Laura can open their mics. I don't see anybody. Well, there is one issue. Yes, who is this?
There's one question. Hi, Enrique, it's Irena. There's one question from Greece.
In the chat.
To Claire, yeah.
Yes.
Have you considered making a 3D model of the coastal geosite, which is threatened by erosion, in order to preserve the scientific knowledge?
A 3D model of the coastal geosite.
Yes, thank you. That's a great question. We haven't done a 3D model for that. We have 3D models for some other sites. It really comes down to resources and our availability. So within Geological Survey Ireland, the Geoheritage team is very small. It's myself and one other. So although we have all the other staff in the survey to support us, it does come down to resources. If we were able to encourage the developer to put some more effort and energy into it, it's something we could have worked with them. But because the geological, I didn't say it in my presentation, but the county geological sites, they aren't protected by law. They have no statutory protection. They're just protected through their inclusion in these county development plans. So in this case, in many cases, it works. But in this case, it was just by our working together with the developer that we were able to implement any sort of change. The developer had no obligation under law to do anything. He could quite happily just covered up the whole geosite and moved on. But by working with him and making him understand the importance of the site, they were happy to look at these alternative cliff defences. And that is at their own cost. So a 3D model would be lovely to have. We did look at other measures for recording the geoheritage at the site if it was to be covered up. So whether we could do things like 3D models, whether we could do some drilling, whether we could do some trial pit, record some exposures further inland. But in the end, we didn't need to do these because the developer was happy to work with us and change and amend their cliff defences to retain this section. So it would be a lovely thing to do, but we haven't done it. That's a long answer for a short.
Oh, it's good. Thank you. And also there was a comment I was just seeing from Lisbeth Flint Jorgensen. To everybody, if you have read it, it was mainly to Claire regarding your presentation, Claire, but she's mentioning, it's not a question, it's just a comment, that looks like the Geological Survey of Ireland had contributed to this tourist mine that was included in the mineral intelligence, the Intel for EU. You were also involved with that?
I wasn't involved with it directly. The person before me, my predecessor, was involved with that, and it was a project that we did with the EPA, our Environmental Protection Agency, and we actually have, as a result of the project, a historic mines database, which was, as you say, fed into the GeoAir project. And yeah, many of those historic mines are also county geological sites and national geoheritage sites. So the question talks about the EGDA and a future map on geosites, which is something we've talked about as a geoheritage expert group within EGS, and I think that's something that we may see in the future. Is that right?
Yes, yes. Well, that's the idea. The only thing is that we have not announced yet because it is not yet there. But the good thing of this EGDI is that it's available for everybody in the web, and so that anybody in the local communities, in the municipalities, they are able to see what is around them, what is both for, in our case, for geoheritage, also in this database that is already entered, that can be seen already through the web. About the mines, and one thing that I liked a lot that the GSI, the Geological Survey of Ireland, had been doing was this collaboration with the mining companies to emphasize the geoheritage that appears during the mining, during the development of quarries or whatever, and how they can collaborate with the local communities or the associations or whatever to include it and to protect some sites that may be important, may be relevant. And hopefully, not very far in the future, we will also have a database with the geological heritage, and so that everybody can take a look and see in their countries around them what is more important. Of course, the main database is supplied by the national government from the Geological Survey or the local surveys like Roland, the Bavarian Geological Survey. But all this is best taken advantage. It's good. It's to be used when it is available for everybody. I don't know if you want to add anything else. Let's see, we
No.
have some. We have from somebody from the OEGS, from the Organization of African Geological Surveys. They're saying thank you so much for the webinar, informative, and something to encourage African geological surveys to promote geoheritage in their respective countries and surveys. Okay. And we also have people, Wilfredo Ramos from Bolivia, but we are not getting many questions. I think we agree in some things that are very obvious. And the good thing, I think, to conclude, if for those who have been present at the session today for this webinar about the local, the socioeconomic, the contribution of geological survey, the geological heritage also to the local socioeconomic development, is to learn that there's many possibilities to take advantage, and that if this is properly inventoried, properly valued, and we know what we should do with it and what we should not do with it, then it is possible to obtain many benefits from this. I don't know if you want to. I would like to hear Roland and Claire, if you want to add or the main conclusion that you would suggest for those people that are listening, that a contribution that you would like to emphasize. No?
No, I don't think so, Enrique. Just I suppose the importance of the inventory and the importance of the audits and the identification of the geological heritage sites. Once you have that done, there's much more that you can move on to, like Roland spoke about, evaluating the sites, looking at specific management issues, looking at sites that are under threat, that need more promotion or need more protection. There's many things that you can do, but you, as Roland was saying, bottom up, you need to have the sites well documented and researched first.
Mm-hmm.
And I will close with the word only. You have to learn, you have to know a thing before you can esteem it. And if you esteem it, you're willing to protect it. I think this is the overall conclusion.
Yes, that's right. That's one thing that when I remember in the 90s or 80s when we were talking about environmental education, you need to know things, and then once you know them properly, then you will begin to esteem, like you said, to love them, to enjoy them,
Yes.
and then you will want, after that, you will want to protect them and to use them properly, sustainably. That's right. Thank you very much. I will let Nicolas know also, and thank you very much, Claire and Roland, and thank you to all the listeners. I think we have had, right now we have 35, but at the moment we had 42 people present at our session, and we will leave this, the video in the YouTube channel of EuroGeo Surveys, and we will later distribute and also include the link in the EuroGeo Surveys webpage, and also in our expert group and on the Geoheritage Expert Group, so everybody can see it later or share it with other people who might be interested. Thank you very much. Thank you, the Secretariat, for helping us with the session, with the technical part. And goodbye, everybody, and see you next year. We will also have 2 other sessions related, or maybe 3 even. We are preparing one in geoheritage in relation to natural protected areas, also geoheritage in relation to mining environments, and another one of geoheritage in relation to geoparks and geotourism, more specific to take advantage for the geotourism. Okay, see you later. Bye bye to everybody.
Bye bye to everyone.